Starting tomorrow, a 5-game road trip for your Phoenix Suns. This 5-game road trip will determine the season for this team. Welcome back in the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you being here. It's a pretty bold statement for me to make, but I truly believe when we get back from this 5-game road trip, when we are able to fast forward to the end of it, and this team returns home, we will know what this team is and what this team isn't. Let's reset. This team, 500. 19-19, 38 games through the season. Still not at the halfway point of the season. Still a whole second half of the year. We will cross that bridge during this road trip. When this team gets back from this road trip, we will know. Have they turned it around? Are they going in the right direction? Or is it time to hit, and we'll continue the analogy that we've been using on the show, the big red button in the middle, which is we got to reset. We have to tear this thing down. We'll know. This 5 games is going to tell us. Here are the 5 teams that they are going to play during this upcoming road trip. Atlanta, Washington, Detroit, Cleveland, and Brooklyn. A 5-game road trip into the Eastern Conference to play Atlanta, Washington, Detroit, Cleveland, and Brooklyn. Of those 5 games, only 2 of them are against teams with winning records, Detroit and Cleveland. Everybody else, Atlanta, Washington, Brooklyn, 500 or worse. Atlanta also at 500. 1 game of that 5 against the worst team in the NBA. Washington, the worst team in the NBA. 6 wins on the season. Atlanta, a team that you just proved that you can beat. You just beat them. They came into your building and you beat them. And Brooklyn, while they're not Washington bad, and they're not Atlanta good, Brooklyn isn't a very good basketball team either. This road trip, and we're setting the expectation now on the front end. I'm not going to do this after the first couple of games. We're going to do this right now. The expectation for this road trip needs to be at least 3-2. This team needs to come back from this road trip above 500. You're 19-19 right now. You go 3-2 on this road trip. I'm doing some quick math. 19 plus 3 is 22 and 21. You need to come back from this road trip 43 games into the season, just on the other side of the halfway point, 1 game above 500. At a minimum, 22-21 needs to be your record as a team when you come back. Because I look at this stretch of games. I can stomach you losing to Cleveland. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. You're not on that level. Now, let's face it. Talent-wise, you should be able to go toe-to-toe with Cleveland. You should be. Should be able to. There's nothing about what you've done this season that's going to make me try to convince everybody that you're going to beat Cleveland. So I can stomach you losing to Cleveland with how good they are. And let's face it, this team not meeting expectations. 3-game winning streak, I get it for their last 5. They might be getting hot at the right time. I can accept a loss to Cleveland. If they lose to Cleveland, unless they get embarrassed and lose by 40, we're going to come in here and say, listen, there you go. That's the reason why we're not on board with this team, because they're not on that level. But I'm not going to completely destroy them for it. You know what I can't stomach on this road trip? I can't stomach you losing to Washington. I can't stomach you losing to Brooklyn. I can't. And so I look at those 2 as wins that you should already account for. And I've given you 1 loss that you should immediately account for. So 5 games, I have you 2-1 already with games that you cannot lose. You cannot lose to Washington. You cannot lose to Brooklyn. You can lose to Cleveland. I can accept that. That's 2-1. That means I'm giving you the other 2 games to steal 1. Atlanta and Detroit. Steal me one of those games. And oh, by the way, I've already watched you recently, during this current streak you're on, beat Atlanta. 3-2 has to be the minimum. You do anything worse than that, you come back from this road trip. Let's say you come back from this road trip and you lost to Washington, and you lost to Cleveland, and you lost to Atlanta. And we're talking about a 1-4 road trip past the midway point of the season. What are you supposed to do with that? What do you want me to do with that? Do you want me to try and say, oh, no, everything's fine, just trade for Jimmy Butler, or make this move or make that? No. Enough will be enough at that point. We can play these reindeer games right now and try to convince ourselves that this team is still in it, that this team is going to turn a corner. And we can look at a 3-game stretch and 4 of the last 5 and again, play these reindeer games and convince ourselves of it. You may still just trying to hold on to your faith in this team this season, that they can still do something. I'm on record with this. This team's not going anywhere this year. This is the stretch for them to prove me wrong or to prove me right. I'm not asking you to go 5-0. I'm not asking you to go 4-1. I'm not asking you to go 5-0, win every game by 20 points, and look like the best team in the NBA. I'm asking you, at least in my mind, to do the absolute bare minimum. And the bare minimum is beat the teams that you're supposed to beat, Washington and Brooklyn. I'm not going to ask you to beat Cleveland. And then find another win between Atlanta and Detroit. With as much respect as I can put into this statement, I don't care that all 5 games are on the road. I don't care that there might be some back-to-backs. I don't care that it's a lot of travel. I don't care. What I care about is this team in the toughest time that they have had to show me some resiliency, to show me that they can overcome some adversity. Because if you can't overcome this right now, if you can't look at this stretch and see the opportunity that's in front of you to turn your season around, and we get back from this stretch and they're below 500 and they had a 1-4 trip or a 2-3 trip, if I can't see you overcome this adversity, if I can't see you overcome these hurdles, why should I think for even a second that you're going to overcome adversity in the postseason if you were to get there? How am I supposed to expect you to overcome adversity potentially in a play-in tournament if you can't, in the middle of the season, face this adversity that is set up, let's face it, pretty nicely for you? 2 teams with winning records in this 5-game stretch. So I don't care that they're on the road. I don't. You're playing the worst team in the NBA. You're playing a Brooklyn team that isn't very good. You're playing an Atlanta team that you've already beaten. I mean, I can't lay this out any more strongly. This is it. This is the moment. You either do it now or you're never going to do it. So when they start their road trip tomorrow, just have this in the back of your mind. No, they got to get to 3. They've got to get to 3. When they come back, it needs to be 3 wins. And it's pretty easy to find the 3. It's pretty easy to find the path for them to do the bare minimum to get above 500 and to at least maintain the status quo. Now, I don't want to be this guy because truthfully, I don't think I care that much. I just don't love the look of this. They moved the start time for the Detroit game because they're playing in Detroit. That game is the same day that the Lions will be hosting the Commanders. Devin Booker is a big Lions fan. Kevin Durant, we know where he grew up in the D.C. area, is a huge Commanders fan. They did not move the game because of this, but they moved the game, and there's been a lot of talk of, and there's apparently a bet between Durant and Booker on this, and they will be going to the game after they play Detroit. I don't love potentially that being our focus right now. you've got a season hanging in the balance. Because I'm here to tell you, if you struggle against Atlanta and Washington, and then I kind of see a lazy effort against Detroit, knowing where you're going afterwards, you better be 3-0. Like, I don't want to say it, but Atlanta, Washington, Detroit, we know you're going to the playoff game. I better not see a picture of you in the box after your team's 0-3 on this stretch. So you better find some wins early during this road trip. If your priorities are in the wrong spot and this team goes 1-2 or 0-3 on these first 3 games, boy, is that going to be a bad optic. And I can tell you, next Monday's show, not going to have the same nice feeling that this Monday's show has felt. We're going to go back to what last Monday's show has felt like. So just warning everybody now, it's all fun and games. And it might not matter at the end of the day. And truthfully, you're big football fans. If you take care of business and you want to go enjoy the game, I'm not going to have a problem with it. But it's going to be a really bad look if you go 0-3 to start this stretch and then you go to the basketball game, or the football game, excuse me. Or you go 1-2, and specifically in the Detroit game, you look flat. It's going to open up a huge can of worms. So just please, from an optics perspective, win the Detroit game. Have that be the one that you steal. Please. 5 games to determine their entire season. This is it. This is the 5-game stretch that is going to tell us everything about this team.